Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to Richard Skipper Celebrates. My show is all about celebrating other artists and their bodies of worth. And today is a lot easier than most because the person that I'm going to be celebrating is a dear, dear friend, and that's the one and only Leslie Orofino. Now, many of you who are part of the cabaret world may know a lot about Leslie Orofino. You may not know her the way that I know her. And she may not even know herself the way that I know her. But today, it's all about celebrating Leslie Orofino. But before I bring her on, I'd like to give a little teaser of her incredible show that she opened 4 years ago. We'll talk about that in a few moments. Cocktails with Cole, celebrating the music of Cole Porter. And her influence on her career, the one and only Julie Wilson. So sit back and enjoy this little teaser, and then I will introduce you to my dear friend, Leslie Orofino.
The night is young, the skies are clear. If you want to go walking, dear, it's delightful, it's delicious, it's lovely. I understand the reason why you're sentimental, well, so am I. It's delightful, it's delicious, it's lovely. I feel quite sure a fair de jour would be attractive. Well, we're still active. Let's misbehave. Say you're fond of fancy things, diamond clips and emerald rings. If you want your man to come through, give him the la-la. When your car is asked to stop by a handsome traffic cop, lest you want a ticket or two, give them the last long day. With the wrong chips, though your lips are tempting, they're the wrong lips, they're my ears lips, but they're such tempting lips that if some night you're free, oh, you've been around the lights and danced the lights and laughed the lights. You don't know how we. You may say you've seen the lights and heard the lights and learned the lights, but when one day your lover drifts away, oh Lord, Lord, it is so tragic. But when once more he whispers, "Shut the door," say my nappy. I'm well and how those gals, you kill me. Make so much money to buy every little proposition. I just turn it down. Way down. It's not 'cause I wouldn't. It's not 'cause I shouldn't. Lord knows it's not 'cause I couldn't. It's simply because I'm the laziest gal in town. I like a fool with my baby tonight, break every rule with my baby tonight. And I love with my baby tonight, 'cause it's too darn hot. It's too darn hot. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Wow. It's great to see Cabaret again. A couple of things that I want to say, Leslie. First of all, that show opened 4 years ago, November, at the Metropolitan Room. The Metropolitan Room is no longer here, but you are. And it's been 186 days since all of the clubs and all of the theaters and everything shut down in New York City. I want to ask you, Leslie, how are you doing really in the midst of all this?
How am I doing? I think it has taught me to, there's days that are better than others, believe me. But it's taught me to sort of stay in this lane. You know, I miss performing terribly. I miss my friends in Cabaret. But I don't want to think too much about the past because that'll get me depressed, or spin about the future because I'll get too anxious. But to set goals and to stay in this lane, and I teach, and I'm a justice of the peace, and I rehearse at home. I miss my musicians a lot.
Now, I'm not going to give your exact address away, but you live in Westport, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And you and your wonderful husband, Tom, bought this incredible farmhouse. How many years ago was that been?
Several. 2013.
2013. And there you are sitting on this front porch.
Yeah.
Are you on the front porch? What was that?
Which you'll be on soon.
Which I'll be on Saturday, socially distanced,
right.
of course. We are going to socially distance ourselves. So what is a typical day like in the life of Leslie Orofino these days?
Typical day. Well, what is a typical day? Generally, I am teaching virtually, piano and voice for students 5 to like 95. And when it first started, I would see these little faces get on the screen, and I would just feel for them, thinking they're not in their classrooms. But it's been working out. Amazingly, it's been working out. And
now, has it been difficult for you to embrace this world of this new virtual reality?
It was very frightening at first, and all the teachers, like, because I'm used to sitting next to students. But I rose above it, and it seems the kids did too. And we try and make it fun, and it's working. It's working. It's shocked me that I'm getting used to it. I actually, in some ways, like it. You know.
Now, with all the titles that you have, cabaret entertainer, you are a mom, you're a wife, but I think the title that rises above all others, and anyone looking at you right now will find this hard to believe, but that's that you're a grandmother.
Oh.
And you've got gorgeous grandchildren. I love seeing the pictures of them. But let me ask you, I mean, how young is the youngest grandchild that you have?
2.
2. And the oldest is?
He's just turned 8 today.
Wow. Wow.
Connor Simpson.
And is he getting the enormity of what's going on right now in the world?
Yes. It really got to him for a while. It was getting to him emotionally. But then the parents formed a little pod. And so my daughter is in Pennsylvania with 3 of our grandchildren, 8, soon to be 6, and 2. And they are all being schooled virtually, but they are starting to have sports and getting together in a little pod socially. So that perked him up. And he's doing much better now.
And we're going to take everyone on this journey through your life and career. Now, I unfortunately never met your father, but I did meet your incredible mom, who was just a light on this planet. And you're one of, how many sisters do you have?
4.
No brothers.
Well, there's 4 girls. That I have 3.
That's right.
No brothers. No.
And did any of them have aspirations to go into this business?
No. None of them did. None of them did.
What was it about this business that attracted you to it?
Well, music has always been my passion. And
your father sang.
Excuse me?
I said your father also sang.
Yes, that's how we communicated. We didn't do sports. We didn't do board games. Daddy and I always did music. My mother always said she could tell how he felt. He was, you know, the series Mad Men?
Yes.
Don Draper. He was the Don Draper. He was very handsome. He had his own advertising firm. And he would come home totally committed to family. He was a wonderful man. He was a prisoner of war, blown out of 2 tanks.
Wow. Well, God bless his service.
He had a great, great voice. But his savior was his passion, music. So he'd come home from a day advertising in Manhasset, Long Island, drop his suitcase down, walk over to the piano, and Mom could always tell what kind of a mood he was in by the music he selected. And the 4 girls would sit on the couch and listen to Dad many times during the week. And that's the way Daddy and I communicated. He would always pat the little stool and say, "Come on over, honey, let's sing together." And we did that up until the very last day.
And did your sisters sing along as well?
Not really. I was always the one, yeah, come over. They were more of an audience.
Leslie, what do you think it was that resonated with you, that you said, this is really what I want to do with my life?
I don't know. What did it resonate? It was just my passion, and it always made me happy. Mm-hmm. And I've been thinking about that, music, how it's helped me in my life. It led me to my husband.
Mm-hmm. In what way?
It led me to my husband when I was a single woman in New York, and I joined the Blue Hill Troupe. I was originally with the St. Bart's Players. One day.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, one day I
used to go to those shows when I first came to New York.
You did?
Yes, when I lived in Manhattan.
Ah, well, can I tell you how I got into St. Bart's?
Of course, I'd love that.
Daddy always told me we would always sing together, and I was in, some plays and musicals in high school and college, but not much afterwards. And I always wanted to get back into it. And Dad always said, you know what? You cannot sing if you're going to smoke. I used to smoke. Sorry, Richard.
Wow. I never knew that.
So I remember being in Central Park in New York and saying to my friend, I'm giving up smoking and I am going to audition at St. Bart's. And I did. And I got the role of the Mother Abbess, believe it or not, in The Sound of Music, full orchestra. And I loved it.
Was this the first time that you'd ever acted on stage?
Totally.
Wow. Wow.
Totally. With those
start at the top.
Yeah, I was lucky. And I got a number of leads after that through the years with St. Bart's. But anyway, how it led to Tom was I had been there for several years and loved it. And a couple of the former presidents said, you should also join the Blue Hill Troupe. They have great parties. And I thought, why not? I'll try. So I auditioned and I made it. And Tom was a backstager and I was a front stager. And we met. They were doing at the time the Mikado. And Tom and I were married in 4 months. Isn't that unbelievable?
You married him 4 months after you met him?
Boom. Yep.
Wow. Wow. And how many years has it been now?
Almost 40.
See, that's the secret. Don't vet them. Just marry them and stay with them. Like Danny and I have been together for 30 years.
We just knew. We just knew right away. And how many years has it been for you?
30 years.
30 years.
Danny and I have been together 30 years. Now, I want to go back. Tom was working backstage,
Yeah.
but he never had any aspirations to be on the stage, or did he?
No aspirations to be on the stage. He loves music. And that's the wonderful thing about Tom. He's always encouraged me to get out there and do it, Les. And I love it. It makes me very, very happy. Music always does.
And have the two of you, as a married couple, always lived in Westport, or how did you end up in Westport?
We had a loft in Manhattan, a beautiful loft downtown. And but at the time, how many years ago? 39 years ago, it wasn't an area to raise a child in. I remember the defining moment came. Well, I was walking down 14th Street, and my little baby, Tommy, who it was in a stroller, a crazy person threw out this bureau from like the fifth window.
Oh my God! Wow!
And a shard of glass, about 3 feet tall, just missed us. And I called Tom and I said, "We're moving." And he said, "What?" I said, "We're moving. We're getting out of here. I cannot raise our baby here." I mean, now it's so much better. But so we moved to Westport and never looked back. And I always love it. I love the proximity to the city, and I love coming home.
Now, when you and I first met, you were living in a different house.
Yes.
And as long as I knew you, you were in that house. Did you always live in that house?
No, we had another house. This
Okay.
is our third house in Westport. We had a house in the Old Hill section, and that was adorable. And then we moved to the one that you know us from.
Mm-hmm.
We were there like 20-something years, and
Wow.
we've been here 7. So
And what is it about Westport that gravitates towards you and brings you to Westport?
well, when we started looking from Manhattan, I wanted to have a diversified population. And we looked in Darien and New Canaan. They weren't that diversified at the time. I love the pull of so many artists live here. I mean, we've known many artists in Westport, and they're just very cool. I mean, we knew, well, I won't name drop, but.
And well, it's okay. You can name drop, but like you said earlier, I mean, you're close enough to Manhattan that you. I know that you commuted back and forth.
Yes.
The shows that you've done over the years. Going into a marriage, having children, how soon or how far into motherhood and marriage did you decide that you wanted to continue pursuing the artistic aspect of your career?
I think my daughter was 10 years old. I always wanted to be, I was always the wife and mother first. That is my focus first in my life. And Cabaret was something I enjoyed. I didn't say this is going to be, my total commitment. No, it was always family first. But she was about, I think, 8 to 10 years old. And I had sent a tape into a dream I had, the Oakland, the Algonquin, into Arthur Pomposello. And I had been doing Cabaret with my friend Claire Buffet, who was Lionel Hampton's favorite lead singer.
Wow.
We met through friends in Westport. Our first gig, get this, was at the Plaza. Can you imagine? They sent up a limo.
So when you said that you were performing with her, I mean, were you a duo or did you?
We were a duo. It was called Just Friends.
Okay.
And our first gig was at the Plaza. I couldn't believe it. And they sent up limos for us, and I'm like, oh, this is Cabaret. No.
So even in Cabaret, you essentially started out at the top. You started performing at the Plaza, and then you have this. Do you remember the first Cabaret show that you saw?
I'm trying to remember.
And I'm not asking dates.
Oh, I know, long time ago. The one that I was the most impressed with was probably Julie Wilson.
Okay. And we're going to get to Julie in a few moments because she was such an important part of your life.
Yes.
So that you became very close friends. But was she the first Cabaret show that you saw?
I'm trying to think now. I guess if you want to say really the first Cabaret show that I really saw was probably my father.
Really?
Father, yes. He would all the time. He, like I said, he sang at Carnegie Hall, and he was in musicals all the time. We would see him in musicals growing up, and he would sing at parties and put together some songs with some dialogue. And I guess that was the first. And I could see how he moved people, and that this was magical.
Do you remember your first night as a solo artist? And was your first time as a solo artist at the Algonquin?
No. When I say I went to the Algonquin, I met Arthur Pomposello in, probably 96. And
now, there may be one or two people out there who don't know, first of all, who Arthur Pomposello is. So I know that he booked the Oak Room.
Yeah.
If I can just interject for a moment, the Oak Room was historic. If you want to read a great book, read The Algonquin Kid by Michael.
Yes, I enjoyed that.
About growing up at the Algonquin and, the famous Algonquin Round Table. And I think that it was in the 70s or 80s, I'm not exactly sure, when Donald Smith of the Mabel Mercer Foundation felt that Cabaret should come back to that room. And I think that he opened with either Steve Ross or Andrea Marcovici.
Both fabulous.
And I know that both of them appeared there for years. But you had your aspirations on that room.
Yes.
What was it about the Oak Room that drew you in?
I think the history and the people that appeared there, and I knew it was the top of Cabaret. And I thought, I want to latch my dreams onto that star. And that's what I did. And I put a tape together with Paul Trueblood and John Larroquy, and we sent it to Arthur Pomposello. And this was after
had you had any connection with him whatsoever?
No. And he heard it, and there was a beautiful rendition of "If I Only Had a Brain," and it was done as a love song. Anyway, so he contacted me. He said, "Come on in," and Elizabeth went with me because I didn't have a babysitter, and she was like 8 or 10. And he said, "Keep working. I love this tape. Keep working. I'm going to come and see you at various clubs." So I did for a couple of years, and he always did show up. And then finally, we got there. I think.
Do you know what I love about this story? I love the fact that you paid your dues. That you did exactly what he asked you to do. You went to different clubs. I think that with so many people, and I don't want to step on any toes or anything, but I think that so many people get booked in a room nowadays. They're not really ready to be booked in a room.
Right.
And I think that is, everybody needs a chance. Everyone needs a platform. I don't want to take away from that. But I think it's great for someone to pay their dues and to really work to get to that point. So how long after that initial introduction to Arthur did you get booked there?
I think it was about 3 years later. And I was so thrilled, so thrilled. I mean, beyond thrilled. And we hired a PR person, and we filled it. We
Mhm.
filled it. And we were there, here, we would have a couple dates here and there for 5 years. So I was happy about that. But you
Yeah.
asked me about the first cabaret that I ever did.
Yes.
That Plaza gig was through a friend who booked us for a Christmas party. But to get to the cabarets around the circuit that people had to work at, the duplex, I went down with Ron Metcalf, who I mentioned my friend Claire Buffet before. That was the first one in the city, the duplex. That I remember coming home, and I felt like I was floating. I loved it. And it was a snowy night, and the snow was up to practically my knees. And I can remember walking down the street like, I love this. I just love the whole thing about it.
Now, I'm not asking exact dates because I promised you I wouldn't do that. But
No.
yeah. But can you give me an approximation of when it was that you were booked at the Algonquin?
I think 98.
Okay. And what are you've been around for a while, but let's talk about the changes that you've seen in the cabaret community. And I'm talking about the way a cabaret is produced, where you fit in as an artist. What do you like most about the changes that have transpired since you first began? And what do you miss the most about what's no longer there?
Well, I miss the most the Algonquin. I
Mm.
mean, that was criminal, the way they closed that historical room. I saw Julie Wilson there so many times, and so many Andrea Marcovici. You go on and on and on. Magnificent performers. And they closed that. And then I heard they just changed the whole lobby, the whole thing.
Yes.
I miss that terribly. What do I like? It's a very hard industry. Very hard industry. I like.
Go ahead.
I love your shows, Richard. I love the cabaret shows that you put
thank you.
together with Russ. That, we walked away. I walked away feeling happier, so much happier than I went in. Live music is amazing. And
what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that people that are not part of our community have about what cabaret is or is not?
Well, you have to work very hard to get anywhere in cabaret. Misconceptions that we just sort of walk in and just do our thing and then walk out. No, we have to work very, very hard. And, you bring in your own audience. That is a tough one, consistently to have to do that. And in cabaret, well, it doesn't pay well. Let's get honest.
If it pays at all.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, those of us who do what we do it. It's like, what is it that we're living for? Applause. It's
right.
not for the dollar.
That's right. And I live for it too. In a way, it's the craziest thing. But I feel like sometimes, seriously, that I'm like a therapist in a way. That if I see them holding hands, like they touch I touch their emotions or stirred them up again. Because so many people are looking at computers all day. They're flat.
Right.
And so they're holding hands, during the love song. Or you see them a tear or laughing their heads off. That to me is everything. That's payment.
Well, that's the intimacy of a small space that you can perform.
Yes. If I've moved an audience, that is my payment. And I go out.
I want to get back to the Algonquin.
Yeah.
Your opening night. What was that like? And and how did you find your audience, or how did that audience find you?
Oh my gosh. Well, there was this is something. There was a gentleman, Pete McGovern, who lived in Westport, who, believe it or not, was Jackie Gleason's PR agent.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I have so many stories about him. He was just a doll, and he liked me a lot. And he wrote to the columnist. Oh my God, what's her name? That column, Cindy Adams,
Mm-hmm.
and said, "I have this terrific lady, Leslie Orofino, and I think she would be fabulous in the Oak Room." And I couldn't believe he did that because I have sung locally here. I mentioned my darling friend Claire Bethay before, Lionel Hampton's favorite lead singer. We would do some cabaret stuff around here. And he came to a few and he loved it. So she put me in the column, Cindy Adams, and said, "There's a woman from Westport, Leslie Orofino, and she's going to be appearing at the Oak Room." And your original question, Richard, was
About that first night at the Algonquin and how your audience found you, or how you found the
well, they
audience.
found me through Pete McGovern, his column of Cindy Adams, put it in her column that I was going to be there, and people started talking about it, and we hired a another PR person too, and got that out. Did mailers. I had some beautiful cards done,
And what was the first show that you did? Was that the E.Y. Harburg show that you did?
oh, that was so beautiful. The first show I did was with Paul Trueblood and A Little Romance. It was
Okay.
and that Yip Harburg show we did at the Oak Room too.
So
we
over
did-
the course of the years that you performed at the Oak Room, how many times were you booked there?
How many times? Total times?
I don't mean, I mean in terms of different engagements.
Let's see. In '98, it was like 2 or 3 times. Each year would be a couple of times a year.
Now, I asked you before, and I want to go back to this. I mean, beyond the historical aspect of performing in that room, what was it about that room for you that made it unique to you that you wanted to go back time and time again?
There was a feeling about that room. It was, some people said because it was so long that you had to look left and front and right this way, that it was hard to work. I found it very easy to work. I
think Andrea Marcovici said that the first time that she walked in, she thought, "Oh my God, how do you play this room?" But then it became her favorite room to play.
Totally my favorite room. It was my favorite room to play. I loved it. But,
And now I want to talk about your dear friend, Julie Wilson. How did you two meet?
we met originally. A friend of mine at the time, Linda Mena, was putting together some kind of a paper or radio show, and she wanted a picture of all the divas at the Oak Room. And so she said, because we were both from Connecticut at the time, "Would you join me and come down to the Oak Room, to the Algonquin, to meet some of these people?" I said, "Are you kidding? Of course." So we went down, and I met Margaret Whiting and Andrea Marcovici and blah, 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 blah. And I met Julie Wilson. And she said in her adorable, charming way, "What are you doing? Where are you going to be singing?" And I said I was going to be at 88's. I did all the clubs in New York. And she said, "Oh, I want to come." And I thought to myself, "Oh, come on, this star would never." So I remember being down there, and I'm waiting to go on, and I always get very nervous. I was nervous before I even had this interview. So I'm pacing. All of a sudden, I see her walk in. And she walked in, and she went like this, because I always have my bangs in. She said, "Now, darling, there, go out and have fun." And I did. And she met Tom and I afterwards, and she was so cute. She said to Tom, Tom said to her, "Julie, you have the most beautiful bones." And she said, "Honey, I'd love to jump your boots. And then we got home, and it was about midnight, and she called me up. She said, I'm making spaghetti, but I just had to tell you how much I enjoyed tonight. Isn't that cute? And she would visit after shows, and my parents loved her. She became part of the family. She would come in and sit on the piano and say, now, this is how you lie on the piano. This is how you cross your legs, and
What I love so much about her was she was always that girl from Omaha. And she had no pretense. You and I both were lucky enough to have her in the audience of our shows so many times. I got those calls late at night as well.
Yes.
I remember one time I went to see her, and I was coming home. I was living in the Bronx at the time, and I'm sitting on the subway, and there was this woman sitting across from me with just a brown paper bag.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was, a homeless person or something. She had taken all the glamour off,
right,
and all in the bag.
Right.
And I said, wait a minute, that's Julie Wilson. And she was just, I love her. I miss her.
Her heart.
She was the real deal. And what I loved, especially as she got older and she would be in the audience, there was no censor. She would just yell out at you on the stage, and I love you. And
I have you on tape when I did the show Red Hot and Blues. You're in the audience, and Julie's in the audience, and she's yelling at me back on the stage, watch out now, Tom, because it got wild, this show. Now, is that okay with Tom? Oh, yeah, Julie, it's fine. She was real. There were no pretenses.
Now, I want to, I can't even begin to think how many shows I've seen over the years. Up on the screen, I've got Moonlight and Cocktails, which I still listen to. And it's still available. If people want to purchase the CD, how can they do that?
Well, they can go to my website, leslieorofino.com. And they'll see it right on my website.
When did you decide that you wanted to put what you do on stage onto a CD? And it's a different platform altogether. There's the intimacy of doing a cabaret show. What kind of preparation did you do to get that transfer to happen?
Well, we did this show at the Oak Room about 5 times, and in a year, and we had a nice little run, and we were packed, and I thought this would be a great show to put on a CD, All Things Moonlight, and that's what we did.
Now, I've seen that. I saw the Red Hot and Cole show, which I said, we're not going to go there.
Cool.
You opened that show the night after the election. And again, we're not going to go there. But I was in the audience of your show for that.
Can I show you something?
Yes. Good for you.
Sing them out.
Good for you. And everyone, who's listening to this on podcast, you'll have to go back to watch the video to see what she just showed me. And then your most recent show that you did, Shine, you covered Alberta Hunter.
Right.
Of course, you've been singing her music for years and years and years.
Sure.
You also, I want to save. There were 3 artists that you celebrated that night.
4.
The other 2 were
Dorothy Fields, who I did a whole show of Dorothy Fields at the Oak Room. Alberta Hunter, who I adore, Chicago blues singer. And I love her music. Julie Wilson always had that little, wild stuff. She said, always put that in. So Alberta's totally wild.
and Lady Gaga.
Peggy
And I have to
Lee
tell
and
you,
Lady Gaga.
I had this scenario running through my head. Leslie Orofino is going to be singing Lady Gaga.
I loved it.
And I went to see the show. And as much as I love Dorothy Fields, as much as I love Alberta Hunter, that music of Lady Gaga blew me away. After seeing your show, I went out and started listening truly to Lady Gaga.
No kidding.
Yes. I mean, it was just, I could not believe that you had made that leap to do so. And what was it about Lady Gaga that you wanted to put with these two other iconic women?
Well, the whole three others, Dorothy Fields, Alberta Hunter, and Peggy Lee. The reason I put it all together was that within us, there's something that I think is a gift from God, whatever it is. And if you focus in on that, it'll save you. And music has been that for me. And it saved all four of those women because they had, as many people do in life, we all do from time to time, very tough times. And they decided to focus in on their music, and it made them stars that shine today. And I love that about them. You know, that now Lady Gaga, what drew me to her was that she has mental challenges, mental illness, and she talks about it. She's right out there. There's nothing to be afraid of. People with depression, they get anxiety, whatever, we can deal with it. And she's so kind and has helped many people. So I know it was a leap doing Lady Gaga, but I loved it.
Now, your director was Kenneth Gartman, who we love, you know, who runs the Magnolia Room in Connecticut. Was this the first time that you and Kenneth had worked together with him as a director?
Yes. The first time I worked together with him, Kenneth Gartman. He's terrific.
Now, I know, you know, that you've worked, I mean, Louis Pettick, you've been with him for many, many years.
Yeah.
And, you know, Kenneth Gartman, did he work in conjunction with Louis, or did he direct solely on his own for that show?
He worked in conjunction with Louis. Louis and I have worked together many years. I will, you know, Louis will pitch out some ideas, and then I don't know. I really sort of write the show myself, and Louis will polish it off and suggest different things for dialogue here and there, and also in terms of trying it, thinking of a particular thing when you're singing a song, a particular motivation, and I'll try it out and see what really feels right.
Well, I know a lot of people who, again, who have never done a cabaret show, never produced one, but say that this is something I want to do. You know, there's one word that stands above all others in cabaret, and that's collaboration.
Yeah.
And you have been very, very fortunate. You've worked with Daryl Kojak for many years. How did, you know, in Paul Trueblood that you mentioned earlier, how do you decide on, and let's go through this with each of these sections. How do you decide, number one, on once you have an idea in your head, how do you decide, Leslie, on who are the musicians that you're going to work with?
How do I decide? I don't know. Julie Wilson had suggested Paul Trueblood. Daryl Kojak. I think she also mentioned Daryl Kojak.
Now, have you worked with Daryl longer than you've worked with any other music director?
Daryl and I have worked.
I mean, let's face it, he's a brilliant musician. I hope he sees this. But what is it personally for you that gravitates you towards Daryl Kojak?
Well, his personality is very easygoing, and he's very kind and very cool. But he's also, when we're rehearsing, he will, you know, I tell him, stop me if I'm not doing it. And he will.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are accompanists that'll just let you do anything. Forget it.
Mm-hmm.
So we really collaborate very well. You know, I love his jazz sensibility, and I love the way Tony Bennett, you know, will surround himself with jazz musicians, yet he doesn't consider himself one.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl is just a great, great guy to work with, and I think I was originally led to him by Julie Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
and I've worked with him many, many years, many shows. Ross Patterson was another one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he's terrific. I have utmost respect for all of them. And Kenneth Gartman was wonderful. I remember when I was putting together Shine with Kenneth Gartman, I said, I want to try Lady Gaga. And he said, what? I said, I just want to do that. I get this, you know, sometimes songs will wake me up in the middle of the night and say, you've got to do me.
Well, but you and I, do you remember how we met? Because for me, it's like you've always been there for me.
I was trying to remember that. I thought I was with Julie Wilson, and we were at Danny's when Danny's was Danny's.
Oh yeah.
And someone said, "There's Richard Skipper." I said, "Who's Richard Skipper?"
A lot of people still say that.
No. And someone said, "Oh, he's a really good entertainer." I said, "Oh, I'd love to meet him." And we've been friends for so many years.
We've been friends for a long, long time. I want to tell a story about you.
Oh.
That will let everyone know the kind of friend you are. And this is a story really about myself that I'm going to share. I normally don't do this, but I want to do this just so that it shares the kind of friend that you and Tom are to Danny and myself. When Governor Cuomo put into law that that it was legal for us to get married, that night, it was a Friday night, we were watching TV, and I jokingly posted on Facebook that Danny and I were going to get married. And within an hour, 300 people said they wanted to be at our wedding. And then a few days later, Christine Quinn and Bloomberg decided that they were going to do a lottery. And in order, if you entered the lottery and your names were called, you could waive the waiting fee or the waiting time so that you could get married right away. So I went on, I entered the lottery, and our names were called. So Leslie calls me up one night, and Leslie says, did you guys hear about this lottery? Do you want to tell the story from this point on, or do you want me to keep going?
No, keep going.
Okay. So Leslie calls me up and says, do you know about this lottery that's going on? And I said, yes, I know about it. And she said, have you thought about entering the lottery? And I said, Leslie, we entered the lottery. She said, well, what are you going to do if they call your names? And I said, Leslie, they called our names. And Leslie started screaming, Tom, Richard and Danny are getting married. And then they said, we want to be your witnesses. So the morning that we got married on July 27th, you picked us up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Yes, from Westport, because we didn't know how long the lines were going to be.
Yeah.
It was so hot that day. Remember how hot it was?
Yes.
And we were one of the first 100 couples to get married in New York with Tom and Leslie by our sides. And then when we had our wedding, Leslie, you sang at our wedding. And
love your wedding.
We are family. We will always.
We are family. We are all going to.
And,
but I remember you said, if my name is Pink Leslie, it's a sign from God.
Right.
Okay, sign from God. We're taking you.
And the other thing that I love about you is that our lives are so entrenched in the cabaret world and the world of entertaining. But when we get together, that's not what we talk about. You and I are on this spiritual path. I love the fact that you spend time, you and Tom both, every day meditating and doing all the things that we need to do, especially now, to be grounded with each other. And for me, this time that we're going through is all about, it's a pause. Yeah. It's a pause to say the things that we've taken for granted for so long are no longer there. And I think about, you mentioned 88s earlier, no longer here. I don't know if you ever went to the Five Oaks. That was one of my favorite places to go to on Grove Street. The old original duplex is no longer here. The Algonquin Oak Room, as we knew it, is no longer here.
The Metropolitan Room.
The Metropolitan Room is gone. And I was watching the news last night, and Jerry Seinfeld, and I'm going to put this out to everyone, hashtag save our stages.
Oh, good.
These small rooms that we have, Don't Tell Mama, the Triad, the Laurie Beechman, all of these rooms are in grave danger.
They are
disappearing from us. The Magnolia Room, God willing that all of these places will still be around.
I know.
And I know that you and I have spoken about this, and I would love for you, to share with everyone your thoughts on really taking the time now instead of rushing into everything, so that we all come back a little bit safer and together when we get to the other side.
In taking the time for what do you mean?
Just to pause and appreciate what we have.
Oh, absolutely. I am so grateful that, we are taking a pause, and it's so hard for everyone. You turn on the news, and on one side of my shoulder, I think I get angry when I look at it, because I see, that's why we have to meditate. So many people not wearing masks and endangering others. And then on my other shoulder, the fear of what could happen, to people. It's unbelievable. So we are taking a pause. We are putting things in priority. Our family, our friends, and you are our family, you and Danny, are the most important things in the world. That's it. And
but even before now, Leslie, I realize that so many people put their eggs all in one basket.
Right.
And that basket is career.
Right.
People, it's like this treadmill that people are on, that they have to work their tuchuses off so that they can get nominated for an award and do all these things. And what I love about you is, with each of these shows that I've seen over the years, and I don't know if you remember this, but with almost every show that you've done since you and I have known each other, you've called me and you said, Richard, I have an idea for a show. What are your thoughts on this? And I appreciate the fact that you've asked me for my thoughts, but you don't need them. But the fact that you do the work that you do, it's always, I interviewed Alton Fitzgerald White the other day on his book, My Pride, which I recommend to everyone. But he says in the book, it's all about service. It's service to the audience. It's service to everyone else. And it's not just about you and I being in the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
And, you've I'm sorry?
Oh, you just froze a little bit.
Okay, well, I'm unfrozen now.
Then we're back.
But,
now we're back.
But the thing is that you do put your family life and everything first. And then you've got, and it's so important that we have this in our lives. And you're very fortunate.
Absolutely. Well, you are too. You really are. You and Danny are the greatest. And I'm so glad you have each other. And I'm so grateful that I have my Tom. And he's waving back there.
I know.
And every day I think I try and light a candle when I wake up and start with gratitude. And then we'll, have a good breakfast, because gosh, you have to have energy. And then we'll meditate. And I read from the Daily Word a little positive message each day that it's, have you ever read the Daily Word?
Yeah.
I love it.
And, I heard someone say the other night that if all of us at the end of each day before we go to bed is we name 3 things that we're grateful for that took place that day.
Yes.
It really puts us in a mind state before we, go to bed and everything. It's hard for me to say this, but we are almost at the end of our show. And I always end my shows. I want to thank everybody who took the time to be with Leslie and myself today. Leslie's website is on the bottom of the screen right now. Obviously, neither one of us are going to be doing anything in a live venue for quite some time. But there are videos on YouTube. You go and check Leslie's career out, the work that she's done, everything that's brought her to this point. If you've enjoyed today's show, and if you haven't done so already, please go to my website, richardskipper.com, and sign my guest book with your thoughts about the show. That helps to boost me in other markets.
I will.
I always end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. I always say, like today, I want you to go to your Facebook friends page, go to the 5th friend, and do something nice for them without expecting anything in return. And I went to my list today, and our mutual friend, Brian Summers.
Oh, I love it.
I reached out to Brian and I said, do you have Leslie's CD? Do you still listen to CDs? And so, Leslie, we're going to send an autographed CD to Brian Summers.
Absolutely.
We both appreciate you. Before we sign off, Leslie, any closing remarks that you want to leave everyone with what we're going through at this time of our lives?
Be kind. Be kind. Count your blessings. Be patient with yourself and those that you love. And lead with love. That's a very important one. Lead with love.
Well, I love you very much, Leslie. And I will see you on Saturday.
Yes!
Socially distanced, of course.
Of course.
I'm giving you a big kiss and a kiss to Tom as well. Have a good evening.
Love you.
Thank you.
Bye.